Hello, church family. Welcome to today's Sunday school lesson. We are in session 7 entitled God's Deliverance, and our key idea this week is God protects and defends those who belong to him, and we're in Psalm chapter 18, verses 16 through 29. We're going to start off by asking the question, what measures do you take to protect the things you value? What prompts you to take these steps? I think our first line of thought goes to our front doors. We lock our doors at night and when we're not home because we have things that we value. We have things that we cherish within the walls of our home. If we are out and about and in our cars and we leave something valuable in the car, what do we do when we walk into Walmart, or we go to the mall, or we go to work, even in the parking lots of our places of business? What do? We lock the doors of our cars. Even the cars themselves could be stolen if the keys were left in them or the doors were left unlocked, and so we want to keep those things safe. And then on top of that, even beyond that, we have people and animals who we want to keep safe as well, and so we might have regular checkups for our family members. We might have regular checkups, vet appointments for our dogs to keep them healthy, to make sure they're not sick, to make sure that they are still feeling well, make sure that they are still doing well. They don't have any hidden sicknesses or illnesses like that. And then so we go so far as to put insurance on our lives. I have a couple of life insurance policies, so that in the event that something were to happen to me, Grace would be taken care of, and our child would be taken care of. I have health insurance to help to pay for doctor's appointments and things like that. We're looking at moving health insurances around so that Grace can have a little bit more coverage as well, and so that our child can be covered in the event that he gets sick, and all the doctor's appointments that come with having a newborn. And we will have that at the beginning of next year. And so we have all these ways that we protect loved ones. And some of you might even have firearms in your house to protect your family in the event of an intruder. We don't have any firearms handy that would be good for that, but I do have a couple of baseball bats and heavy items, and I'm a pretty good throw, and so I could protect our family if I needed to. I don't need a gun right this second. Probably shouldn't put that on the internet. Ignore that. I might have guns. You don't know. Anyway, the world is filled with dangers. Because of this, we are thankful for those who serve in our military, our law enforcement, our fire and rescue teams to protect and defend us from danger. We also lock our doors and turn on lights at night to ward off threats. We can appreciate all of those things. However, we as believers have a protector and defender who is with us 24/7. No person is exempt from experiencing adversity, but God is always ready to protect and defend those who belong to him. So God gives us protection. He puts a hand of protection. We say the words hedge of protection often around us to keep us safe. And even though we might go through adversity, God's not going to lose us. He still has us within the palm of his hand. He still has us close to him. So we start looking at Psalm 18, and if you remember, Psalm 18 is actually a psalm that I put to text a couple years ago. I'm just going to pull it up very quickly. I'm not going to sing it for you. I'm just going to read I believe it was the first 6 verses that I did. And I just looked at it, so it's right here. I have it right here on my computer, and I just want to read these lyrics to you. Psalm 18. There we go. I entitled this Psalm 18 parentheses, the Lord is my rock. This is a psalm of thanksgiving. It starts with David praising the Lord, and he says, I love you, Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. My God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies. The cords of death encompassed me. The torrents of destruction assailed me. The cords of Sheol entangled me. The snares of death confronted me. In my distress, I called upon the Lord. To my God, I cried for help. And from his temple, he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ears. So there's 5 sections. That's the first 2 sections, verses 1 through 3, and then part of the second section, which starts in verse 4. So the first section is David praising God for being his strength and his rock and his deliverer, his shield and salvation and stronghold. The second section, David depicts how the Lord saved him when he was about to die from the grave, from Sheol, from the snares of death, even, David says. And then in the third section, David extols the Lord for his faithfulness. He praises the Lord for how faithful he was to David. In the fourth section, David delineated how God had prepared him for battle and gave him victories. And then finally, David returned to where he began the psalm, thanking and praising the Lord, his rock, and the God of his salvation. So this psalm is quite long. It is 50 verses long, and we're going to be looking at that fourth section, the second and third sections today. So we're starting in verse 16 and going all the way to verse 29. So we're looking at a pretty big span of this psalm, and we're going to read that together. Let's read together verse 16 through 29 of Psalm 18. He reached down from on high, and he took hold of me. He pulled me out of deep water. He rescued me from my powerful enemy and from those who hated me, for they were too strong for me. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out to a spacious place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. The Lord rewarded me according to my righteousness. He repaid me according to the cleanness of my hands, for I have kept the ways of the Lord and have not turned from my God to wickedness. Indeed, I let all his ordinances guide me and have not disregarded his statutes. I was blameless toward him and kept myself from my iniquity. So the Lord repaid me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands in his sight. With the faithful, you prove yourself faithful. With the blameless, you prove yourself blameless. Now, David is speaking to the Lord himself. With the pure, you prove yourself pure, but with the crooked, you prove yourself shrewd. For you rescue and oppress people, but you humble those with haughty eyes. Lord, you light my lamp. My God illuminates my darkness. With you, I can attack a barricade, and with my God, I can leap over a wall. So David is singing unto the Lord. He has sung about how God has been a rock and a fortress and his strength and his deliverer. Now he's thanking God for rescuing him from death. And then we see the Lord's faithfulness unto David, verses 20 through 29. And David is just pouring out this praise unto the Lord because the Lord is deserving of it for what he has done for David and how he has treated David so far. You'll remember a couple weeks ago I said that in Kids Praise we worship God for who he is and what he has done. And so David here has worshiped God for who he is, but he's also worshiping God for what he has done. I apologize for the color shifting that is happening. It's very yellow behind me right now. I'm not sure what to do about that at the moment. Anyway, let's look at our first section, which is Psalm 18, verses 16 through 19. Scoot up a little bit here. And this is the God who rescues. And our topic in this question is believers can call upon God in times of adversity. Let's see how we can call upon God during times of adversity. He reached down from on high and took hold of me. He pulled me out of deep water. This phrase, reach down, it's reaching and holding. It's the same reaching that Jesus did for the Apostle Peter when Peter began to flounder and drown in the lake when Jesus was walking on water. It's the same idea that God was reaching down from on high and taking hold of David. He pulled me out of deep water. He rescued me from my powerful enemy and from those who hated me, for they were too strong for me. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out to a spacious place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. So the day of David's calamity there in verse 18, this is distress and destruction that was caused by oppression. So somebody, one of David's enemies was oppressing him, was confronting him, and when they did this, the Lord was his support. It was the staff. It was his standard. It was something to lean against for support. And he brought me out to a spacious place. This is kind of a picture of rescue from a tight space or a tight, deep well. This is the idea of being rescued from something that feels a little claustrophobic or confining, maybe almost like a prison, and the Lord has rescued David and let him out into this open place, the spacious place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. So what do these 4 verses, what do they really reveal about God? That God goes after and protects and rescues those whom he loves. So if you are a family in the family of God, if you are a believer, then God is going to rescue you from whatever it is you're going through. He's still going to let you go through it, but eventually he will rescue you from it. If there is something that's not something that I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. God allows a lot of things, but if it's not something that he wills for you, he will take you out of it. He will rescue you from it. If it's oppression from another person, if it is slavery unto another person, he will rescue you out of it. So God is one who goes after those who he loves. It's just like the picture of one lost sheep going astray and the shepherd going after it and leaving the 99 to do so. It's the same picture of in the parable that Jesus told of the old lady who had 99 silver coins and lost one, but she tore her house apart looking for that lost silver coin. And we are so much more valuable than a sheep or a silver coin to the Lord. And he's not going to just let us, he's not going to not go after us. He will go after us and seek us out. So our second section, we see faithfulness rewarded. This is how the Lord has rewarded David for his faithfulness. Verses 20 through 24. The Lord rewarded me according to my righteousness. He repaid me according to the cleanness of my hands. For I have kept the ways of the Lord and have not turned from my God to wickedness. Indeed, I let all his ordinances guide me and have not disregarded his statutes. I was blameless toward him and kept myself from my iniquity. So the Lord repaid me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands in his sight. So David, there in verse 24, says, he was rewarded according to the cleanness of my hands in his sight. So David was emphasizing his desire to walk with integrity before God. David was called a man after God's own heart. He desired above all else to be someone who followed the Lord's statutes and the Lord's commands, and he was rewarded greatly for that. It involved keeping his ways and avoiding evil, as well as obeying God and living a blameless life. And David was blessed over and over again with a healthy kingdom, with a healthy rule over Israel, and with a kingdom that flourished under David's rule and under God's command because of his faithfulness to the Lord. Even though David was a sinful man, even though David was still broken and in need of a savior, he was still seen as righteous. He was still seen as worthy of protecting, and we are told that the Spirit of God never left David for the length of his life because of his character toward the Lord, which was one of faithfulness. So he wasn't perfect. He wasn't, in fact, a lot of David's life, he wasn't much of a role model. But what he is to us is an example of how we should live our lives with this desire and regard for the Lord, that we want to live our lives doing what we think God wants us to do. This obedience, keeping God's ways and avoiding evil, and living a blameless life, living a life of integrity. And then, so in that, what steps of faithfulness to God do we need to do today? Do you need to do today? You can't answer this to me directly, but you can comment in the comments if you feel like it. But I think we as a whole, as Christians, the things that we need to do is, number one, we need to have that close personal relationship with the Lord. That means having a quiet time every day. This is something that you'll hear me and Brother Ronnie and Brother Richard talk about all the time. Having a personal quiet time with the Lord where you can hear from God and communicate to Him about your day and about your feelings and about your thoughts and about your hurts and about your needs, but also listen to Him for guidance for what He wants for your life. And how do we hear from God? Well, we hear from Him through His Word and through His Spirit, and also through other godly men and women in our lives that He puts there for wisdom about what we should do next. So that's our first step. Our second step is being involved in a local body of believers. And when I say being involved, I don't mean just going on Sunday morning. That's the bare minimum, is going to church on Sunday morning. What it actually means to be involved is finding your place of ministry and letting yourself be equipped by God, and not waiting until you have the equipment, but rather hearing the call from the Lord to get involved in ministry, whether it's in the AV booth or in the choir or playing an instrument on Sunday morning, if it's greeting people on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights and Sunday nights, if it is serving on the security team or the safety team, if it is serving in a Sunday school class. My wife is a Sunday school teacher this year. She's been teaching junior high girls with Whitney Williams. There are so many places for you to get plugged in, and God has already equipped you and is calling you, and if He hasn't equipped you yet, He will. God didn't equip me with a voice to sing until well into my college years. It's something I was following and something I was doing because I knew God was calling me to it, but I couldn't sing worth a lick. And I still don't think that I have the best voice, but God gives me a voice to sing. He equips me with that for my calling, which is to lead His people in worship. That's what He's called me to do. So that's your second step, finding a place of worship and being involved in a local body of believers in ministry to serve others. And then finally, I would say our final step that we need to take as a church and as believers is to spread the gospel, and to do so with a loving heart, to do so in love, to make sure that people understand that Jesus loves them first. He hates sin, yes, but God loved the world that He gave His only Son, that we approach people with the love of Christ and not the fear of the Lord. I know that was a big tactic a long time ago, that we were going to scare people into heaven, and while that might work on a few, the majority are just going to shut their ears off the moment that they hear that. I know that as a skeptical teenager, I saw that kind of stuff and I scoffed, and I just went, why would you do this? Why do you think this is going to work? If I hear somebody yelling at me like this, I'm more inclined to stop listening to them and walk away and be on my merry way. I'm not going to give that another ounce of my attention. And so I think there are better ways to share the gospel than what the church has employed over the years. And then finally, our last section, hope given, verses 25 through 29. With the faithful, you prove yourself faithful. Again, this is David speaking to the Lord. With the faithful, you prove yourself faithful. With the blameless, you prove yourself blameless. With the pure, you prove yourself pure. But with the crooked, you prove yourself shrewd. Notice that the parallels that David was drawing there, they break with this final one. With the crooked, God doesn't prove Himself to be crooked. He proves Himself to be shrewd, meaning calculating, meaning logical, meaning someone who takes into account all of the things and makes good. In this case, it paints the picture of a financial decision, but it's really just a wise decision. For you rescue an oppressed people, but you humble those with haughty eyes. Lord, you light my lamp. My God illuminates my darkness. With you, I can attack a barricade, and with my God, I can leap over a wall. So David says there in verse 25, with the faithful, you prove yourself faithful. The ESV says you show yourself merciful. This word, faithful, implies loyalty and kindness, long-suffering patience, all of those kinds of things. From the earliest days of the law, God had promised to honor those who honored him. So he's going to be steadfast. He's going to be faithful. He's going to be patient with us. And then the others are self-explanatory. With the blameless, you prove yourself blameless. God is not going to do any wrong to anyone, especially those who have not wronged him. He's going to be the example of purity for those who are pure. And then when someone is crooked, he's going to make the right decision, a just decision. Is this someone that is this someone who is deserving of punishment? Is this someone who is deserving of being brought back into the fold? Is this someone who deserves being smited by the Lord because of their actions? And then verse 27, it says that you rescue and oppress people, but you humble those with a haughty eye. Haughty meaning arrogant. And God's going to bring those people low. That's what the NIV says, that God brings them low. He judges the arrogant. And then verse 29, with you I can attack a barricade. David's courage in the face of his enemies is based on his confidence in God's power and protection. So how have you seen God's faithfulness expressed in your life recently? For me, it is just the gift of this baby boy that we're so excited about. Grace and I have been praying and hoping for a child for months at this point, and we honestly weren't expecting it to happen when it happened, and we could not be more excited and blessed and thankful that God has honored our faithfulness by being faithful to us. We have been praying for this. We've been obedient in our giving. We've been obedient in our service. We've been obedient in our lives. And God has rewarded that and blessed us with this gift of new life. And I truly believe that. It's something that we've both been hopeful for and been praying for. And I believe that God hears the prayers of the righteous. And this is such a blessing. And I'm totally undeserving of it. I'm going to say that now, but I have been doing the things that I believe I ought to as a husband, as a follower of Christ, so that I could be found faithful in God's eyes and that he would be faithful to me and to my wife. And so it's really easy for me to use that as an example, but I think that's a good example. I think it's a very real example of God's faithfulness to me and to my family and to my wife and I, and I just love it. I'm so excited. So anyway, be found faithful this week. Be found faithful to go after Jesus, to have that relationship with him. Be found faithful to be plugged in ministry at Emory Baptist Church, and be found faithful going and sharing the good news of Jesus with others around you this week. Thanks so much for being with me. I look forward to worshiping with you very soon. Bye-bye.